Hi, I'm Jazz and I'm an alcoholic and I'm codependent. I work a 12-step program and I seek health. I am a seeker and a traveler in my journey. The biggest thing that I focus on, I think, that takes up most of my day is just trying to get my needs met. And I do that intentionally and with commitment, but also just with that grace of I can shoot for it, but I have to be okay if I don't always get those needs met in my day. But I would say that it seems like most of my life is kind of working on getting those needs met first and hanging out with people, having fun, going here, going there in, a happy, normal, joyous way, like just living my life, so between needs and just doing that is pretty much how I'm living my life these days. But just to focus on needs a bit more, I would say that, just to keep my spirits up and keep myself healthy and keep myself in check, I mainly focus on, getting those needs met first and then figuring out the rest. And everything else is kind of around that. There was a time I didn't know what those were. And I've said that in some other videos. And I was also confused between, needs and wants. But just to talk about needs a bit more, is I've just, by figuring out how to get that into my day or my week, has been a huge game changer. And when I was first trying to get those met, and they weren't always getting met, or people would bulldoze them, or I didn't have the strongest boundaries with other people or even myself, and, let those needs get pushed aside. In that learning part of my journey of trying to identify the need, get the needs set up, and then protecting the needs, and then maintaining and continuing the needs. It took time and work. So that was the first thing, was just to identify what is really the things that I need to keep myself going and healthy and in check. And I'm going to explain a few of those. I know for me that I really need my exercise. I really need my meetings. I really need strong, healthy, trustworthy people to talk to. And I had to learn who's trustworthy and who's not. And that took some time too. That's another thing. But I need people in my corner, and I need a connection with my higher power. And, I have 4 little boys, and what I noticed was before I was exercising, it was a lot harder to get everybody in the car and go to A and B and do everything I need to do in a day. And I was physically burnt out. But I found out that when I was physically stronger, and it didn't go in this order, but I had listened to myself to figure out that, oh man, I'm just not keeping up. I just don't have the strength physically. And, I'm getting drained. And I was like, I really, I kept trying to get this working out in, and I just couldn't get it in. And so I had to really buckle down and find a way to get this exercising in, because, I knew it was good for my mental health, but I just knew my whole body was just so weak and I needed to put myself back together, and I needed physical strength. And so I was like, when I was trying to figure out my needs in the beginning, I was thinking, well, I think I kept blowing it off, and it's really easy to do that as a mom, I find, because there are so many other little people that have their needs. But here I'm on this journey trying to figure out how to put myself first, and I'm trying to change things up. I'm used to putting everybody else first and then put myself first. So I'm like, okay, if like I'm in this program, like I got to figure this out. I got to figure out how to get my own need met. Like I'm good at getting everybody else's needs met, but how do I get my exercise in? And my meetings, I was getting maybe one meeting in a week at sometimes, and I was like, this is just not enough. Like my spiritual, emotional, mental health was suffering a bit because I wasn't, like I needed more than just one meeting, and I have a pretty heavy home life, and so I figured, okay, like I found out that was super important too. Is that by listening to myself, I figured I need more. And that's, huge game changer in my 12-step program of just figuring out that relationship with me has helped me so much in figuring out those needs. But here I am. I'm trying to get this exercise in, and I don't have time for the gym. I don't have the extra money for the daycare. I don't even have like an hour at home to get this exercising in. So, I found this old treadmill and I didn't have a lot of money. So I reached out to my higher power and I'm like, Lord, you gotta put one in my tracks that's $100 or less. And, it needs to be kind of commercial grade. It needs to, handle sprints because I do really fast and hard sprints. And anyways, so I kind of put that prayer out there. And, one little trick that I do a lot is I do something, pray something, or like I do something or pray for something, and then I always add a little time. I just find, okay, I'm going to put some time on that, and I'm just going to like look the other way and think about something else. And I have to kind of turn it off and stop obsessing about it and just, give it away, right? Like I've said the thing, I know I need it, I've said the prayer, and I've given it away, and I try to turn the focus off on that. My part is I just kind of, I had the idea, I had the budget, the thing I needed, and then I put the time on it, and I just would scroll and wait, and I would see things that were close but not quite, and I just say to myself, like, no, it's got to be the one that I asked for, and my higher power is going to put that one in my way. It's going to put it there, and I just believe that. And sure enough, one pops up, it's $80, it's commercial grade, and it was the day was right. I had an extra hand, and I think I didn't have my kids that day, and it was just like everything was lining up. Like it was like all I really have to do is go get it now. And that was like the last bit of the moving block to get that thing to my house. And I got that treadmill and I put that into my basement, and that has been such a huge, it's added to my life so much because I really appreciate when I can get my exercising in, and then I found that I was like, well, I also have is a half an hour to give it as hard as I can on that treadmill. And what I noticed was I was wasting so much time setting up before I'd get to my workout. And so I really, to this day, I have my shoes, my socks, my headphones, my workout, my sports bra, and like I have everything set up ready to go for me to literally just wait for that time to be available to do it. And then I get on my treadmill and I do my workout. And, I did try the whole planning out my days in the week for when I would exercise. And I found I kept getting disappointed because it kept getting bumped or pushed back, or I just wasn't able to get that time in. So now I've gotten to a point, and I would get really frustrated over this. And so now I've gotten to a point where I keep it pretty loose, and I just say like, well, it's just going to have to be the next opportunity in the next few days. And when that, when I have enough energy, then, because some nights I don't get the best sleep. And when I have enough energy and the babies are sleeping, and it looks like I'm going to have about 45 minutes, because I sprint for about a half an hour, but then I'm going to jump on there. And that kind of eliminated that problem of planning, because I found that planning wasn't working out. And then I was getting all upset because I had the expectation I was going to be able to work out. And then I was getting sad because it didn't work out that I could. So anyways, I now wait in the opportunity that when that opportunity shows up, I grab it and I get on there and I do my thing. So that's just taken so much listening to myself and kind of like working through what's going to work for me to get that need met. And I've done that with my meetings, certain nights that didn't work out. And I have had an issue with daycare or people that were going to help out so I could go to my meetings. And what I noticed was I couldn't rely just on one person. So I have set up, 3 different pretty reliable daycare girls that can show up for me, that don't need to take on the full load. So if one can't make it or someone is sick, then I'm still have another 2 people to ask. And I found that was a really good way for me to get my need met, to get to meetings as a mom with little people. And the other thing is because I found myself not doing well with just 1 meeting a week, and I needed 2. And what is good is that, because if I miss 1 meeting, I'd have to go way too long. I'd have to go into the next week to get another meeting, and I couldn't afford that. So what I did was I planned for 2. If 1 misses, then I still have my 1 left. And sometimes I go to 3 meetings a week, and I find that has prevented me from going into the dip. Instead of just maintaining at I'm okay, I'm not doing too bad, I prefer to maintain my recovery, at a nice, a little bit of a dip down in the week. But I mean, I want to be enjoying my life. And I just found when I keep my head straight and, I keep my love for myself going, and I'm making connections with people at meetings, and I'm getting my exercise, those little needs that I need for me, I just find my life is way more enjoyable, and I want that, and I need that. And so I've done a lot of work to get my life to those places, that work for me. And my needs are not negotiable, and they're up to me. And I work really hard at getting those met. And I live in the opportunity. And when it doesn't work out, I kind of have a plan, B or C. And I also try not to beat myself up for it, because I found in the past when I was trying to figure this out, I'd get really down on myself, and I'd be all ashamed, and just I would kind of catastrophize and go, make it bigger than it was, and just be like, oh, I'm never gonna work out, and what if I can't work out tomorrow, and I just feel so flubby today, and I don't feel good. I need to get my blood pumping, and I just go right into this negative spiral. And I don't do that today, because I found that wasn't helping me either. So like I've said before, is I've learned to become my own best friend. And in those defeating moments when I didn't get what I wanted, or I didn't get what I kind of planned, I say to myself, I'm going to get the next one. There's still an afternoon nap. Maybe I'll do it tonight when the kids are asleep. Like I keep it open and I keep it positive, and I just say, like, I'm going to get it in the next few days. And I talk myself through that disappointment, and I help myself, and that's just huge, because all that negative self-talk, it doesn't do anything but just make me feel bad. And I'm really working at trying to make myself feel better and good and be able to operate in this world. And these are just some of the ways. Another need that I have to get met is I need good, healthy, strong people that, if I spend intimate time with, that and I do, that it helps me to be loved by people that I love. It helps me. Another need of mine is just to really love myself as well. Like I have to do everything in my power to give love to myself, to take myself out, to, even if I just have to paint my nails one night, like I have to do kind things to myself. And I, because I was stuck in the whole putting other people first, I wouldn't buy myself nice makeup. I wouldn't buy myself nice socks, because I would just be like, that's too expensive. And I would always just whittle down anything that came to me. And, today I find I totally give myself permission to do those loving things to myself, and get a nicer pair of socks than just a standard, or have some takeout that's just for me. Like I take care of myself like I would take care of a really good friend of mine. I don't give them the bottom of the barrel stuff. And so I've turned it around to now I show up in a loving way for me. And it's not often now that I am, saying too much negative stuff to myself. It takes a while to sort of just do the whole 180, but I find that keeping it positive and keeping it loving, it's like I'm learning how to run my ship properly, and I think that that's what my higher power would want from me anyways. And everyone that's in my life today is thriving and doing better. So it just, since I've been working on me, it just means I also get to do better as well. So yeah, another need of mine is, okay, so meetings and exercise and people and connection. And yeah, I'd say those are just a few. Another thing is, I never used to have very good boundaries, and I didn't do the self-care. And, since having stronger personal boundaries, I just find that the people in my life that I do, I choose who I'm around. And the people in my life today because I've changed and I've made certain boundaries for me in my life, people have picked up on that. And at first it was a shock, and not everything was accepted or came easy, but now people just understand that that's the way I am. And there's just a respect now for those boundaries, because I make people take me more seriously, and they take my boundaries seriously, because when I do make it, and I just continue to stick up for it. And then if I really can't, reinforce that line, then I will think of another option, and hopefully I don't have to back away. But, today, because I don't have these loose moving around boundaries, people just know now with me. And that's just taken away a lot of the static and, the uncomfortableness, because it's so moving around, and who knows, maybe she's going to change her mind. Like, because I'm allowed to change my mind, but because when it comes to certain personal boundaries, they know what I'm about now. Like, they know where I begin and where they begin, and I end, and etc. And my property lines are clear. They're clearer because I've also had to figure out those property lines. And that has been very freeing. Like, it doesn't sound freeing to have a bunch of boundaries, but it is freeing because I move in the path that works for me, and I'm allowed to, and I deserve to. And there's no one else in the world that's going to give me my needs, or tell me how I should. No one should tell anybody how to live, but because I'm deciding how I live, then, I didn't think it was my permission before, and I am allowed to decide, and it has been better since learning to do it this way. And I had to really go a long time working at this stuff without results, and it was painful and confusing and a bit chaotic because people are upset about it, and I had to work through that for a long time, and to get to this point. And now that's kind of over. Now it's a lot easier to make a boundary and stick up for myself, and I'm not worried like how they're going to be or act, right? Like, if someone's not okay with that personal boundary, it's more of a them thing than a me thing. And yeah, so just another gift of recovery. And, like I said, my needs are not negotiable. They're some of the first things that I think about and work on throughout my day. And then, everything in between and what I want to do is kind of, in and out of that. But I'm just a better me when I'm exercising and connected to people and my higher power, and, doing whatever kind of recovery work that I can do. And, I enjoy just living and living instead of figuring out how to stop the pain all the time. And not everything is coming in and hurting me because, I've got a bit of self-protection now, and I'm not taking everything on. And yeah, so needs are so important, and I used to blow them off. I used to minimize them, and that was just the wrong way to live for me. And it's easier to notice them and protect them now. Another small example was I was having such a hard time with bending down all the way to the floor to pick up the littles. And I was like, this is just killing me. Like, I couldn't even get back up. And so I was like, okay, I got to work on this. There's something I can do here because I need to be stronger at this. So by listening to myself, I acted on that. And so in my exercises, I started, doing the squats that go right to the floor and then back up. And that completely improved that problem, because I found myself just having to pick up lots of things off the floor and messes, and it was just killing me to get myself from back on the floor to all the way standing up again. And that really helped me by gaining that strength. And, that's a bit on physical stuff, but it's just, I never had myself before. Like I never had that relationship with myself before where I actually listened to my need and then acted on my need. And, you know, I think it just helps so much that I'm the one in my own corner. I'm the one keeping myself safe and gaining that confidence in that ability to move here and move there and through a lot less fear today because of really pushing through those first barriers of people's reactions and like, oh, why are you doing that? You always did it this way. And why are you changing and making these, and I've pushed through those walls and those barriers and, it's all still fine today, but it was the fear that really stopped me from doing a lot of those things and getting my needs met. Was my own thinking was huge on not letting me get my own needs met. And now I am, I'm getting my needs met. I'm happier and everyone else still gets their needs met. That's the thing. It's like, it's just better all the way around. So I hope this helps somebody, but yeah, that's been just huge with learning how to live better. So yeah, thank you.